Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Talking Stuff, the Ohio State recruiting podcast brought to you by Lettermen Row and our good friends at Buyers Automotive. If you're looking for a used car, any car in Columbus, Spencer, where do you go?
Buyers Auto.
BuyersAuto.com. We are actually here today in Roosters. We just finished up an episode of Letterman Live. We just finished up, before that, Ohio State's first spring practice. And generally, practice doesn't tie into recruiting. Today it did.
Spring it does.
Today it did because we got to see our first glimpse of Cade Stover at tight end for Ohio State. After starting his career at linebacker, he moved to defensive end. Now he's been moved over to the tight end position. And the Buckeyes are recruiting 2 tight ends in the class of 2021. My thought initially was, how does this impact that? Does that change anything? Do the Buckeyes need to now only recruit 1 tight end in 2021? But as we saw in the last few days, Cormonte Hamilton moves over to defensive tackle. So now the plan is back in place. 2 tight ends for Ohio State in 2021. There's a really good one here in Columbus named Jack Pugh. His brother plays at Northwestern. We wrote about him last week. That's not really here nor there. Point is...
Wrote about his brother or wrote about Jack?
Jack. I didn't write about his brother. His brother's a wide receiver at Northwestern. I don't write about Northwestern football. I don't talk about Northwestern football. I've talked about Northwestern football more in these last 10 seconds than I have in the last 10 years.
All right. Well,
anyway.
So Jack Pugh.
Tight end. Jack Pugh, tight end, Hilliard Bradley High School, really talented. I'm interested to see if he's going to wait it out and come camp for Ohio State this summer. If he does, I think you could see him be the second tight end in this class with Sam Hart, but I don't know if that's going to happen or not. He's got 20-some offers, including big offers like Michigan State, et cetera.
That's big.
It's a big offer.
Yeah.
And, Penn State down the road. So there's all these opportunities. But we're not really here to talk about tight ends, okay? It's spring football. I'm excited because football is back.
I was so happy today. It was
Football's
very
back.
nice.
It's 50 degrees out. It's a little rainy, but who cares? We're in Columbus. I'm Jeremy Birmingham. That's Spencer Holbrook. We're just diving in here, just rip-roaring.
Yeah.
We are talking stuff about Ohio State recruiting, and I want to just talk about football being back. So today at Ohio State, there were 4 visitors on campus. 3 of them are already signed with the Buckeyes, so it's not like there's a lot of intrigue there. Mayan Williams, who had a thumb surgery a few weeks ago, he did not have any sort of brace or anything on his hand. He was fine. Grant Dutant, Ohio State offensive line signee from Michigan, who had a labrum surgery back in November. He told me he's cleared, ready to go. He actually said he was in town and working out with the Buckeyes, despite the fact that he's not early enrolled.
Is that allowed?
I mean, it has to be. They brought him in. I mean, he was in here. It said he was in town Saturday.
I mean, when you're signed, I guess you kind of.
Once you're signed, there's things you can do. I imagine.
I bet it's one of those things where, like, there's weird things like if you pay your housing deposit, you can do certain things.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
once you're enrolled and you're like,
he signed with the Buckeyes. He comes down here to Columbus from Michigan because his doctor's down here after his surgery. So it's just been conducive to him being over on campus. And with Grant was also Jacob James, a Cincinnati Elder offensive lineman.
Hard to miss him.
It's hard to miss him and his hair. And I think it's just cool when these guys do sign to be able to just show up at practice whenever they want, really.
Not even have to work out.
And watch what's happening, because for an offensive lineman especially, the opportunities are so limited because of the numbers, and you got 11, 12 guys playing, the spots. Any of these mental reps that you can get are huge.
And I'm sure they get a nice talking to about what to expect out of mental reps, how to do these mental reps. Because if you come to this practice, you're not just coming to hang out like when you were a recruit. You're coming because you need to get some mental reps so you're not behind the other guys who did enroll early. And I think it is a good thing. Yeah. It's a good leg up to have.
And we can talk about early enrollees for a minute here. Obviously, 14 guys from the class of 2020 early enrolled. Today was their first practice. To me, are they still recruits?
No.
So we don't talk about them anymore.
So
We're done with
the
them.
other guys are.
We're done with them.
They're not here.
We're done with them.
Let's talk about Jackson real quick.
Jackson Smith and Jigba is going to be a star, right? I mean, that's so. Is there a guy who was like more buzzworthy today than Jackson?
I don't
Smith
want to do this to Julian because I think Julian is going to be an incredible football player for Ohio State.
Julian Fleming.
Yeah.
For the uninitiated.
And I think Mookie Cooper is going to be great. And I think all 4 of those guys are going to be pretty darn good wide receivers. But what Jackson Smith and Jigba did today in his first act in front of us, if he wanted to create some buzz Well,
Yeah.
he did it. He was as impressive as I've seen from a wide receiver in a practice, and that goes for when we watched practice last spring when I was around sparingly. Even the guys who were returning didn't look like that. He just looks different.
He has an ability. How do I say this? For the older fans out there, if you remember what Terry Glenn did in 1995,
I wasn't.
You
born.
don't. You weren't
I
alive.
wasn't born.
You weren't alive. But Terry Glenn
-1.
the Bolitnikoff Award winner in 1995.
I know who he is. I just wasn't alive.
As spectacular that season as I've ever seen a wide receiver. Every catch he made seemed to be like electric. There wasn't anything ever really mundane about what he did. Every catch was leaping or jumping or diving or getting drilled while he caught it. I felt that way about Garrett Wilson last year. Like the way that he plays reminded me a little bit of Terry Glenn. And what I see out of Jackson Smith-Njigba is just a guy who, size-wise, he is so much more ready for college football than Garrett was a year ago physically. Now, Garrett's obviously a next-level guy, but Jackson just my only concern would be that he gets himself hurt because he plays so, I don't want to say reckless.
He does play reckless.
But he doesn't, there's no ball he thinks he can't get.
Yeah, he's fearless.
And maybe fearless is a better word.
Reckless and fearless on the football field kind of, on offense at least, kind of go
right.
hand in hand. If you're on defense, it's different.
And polish-wise, this group of wide receivers between Njigba and G. Scott and Julian Fleming and Mookie Cooper, they just, man, it is different. I mean, we talked all year about how good those guys are and how this group is going to be sort of a next level group from the minute they got onto campus. But they're really special to watch.
They're really impressive. It's crazy to me. One thing that I will say about this, it's not going to be a battle because we're never going to pit them against each other ever on Lettermen Row. But Jackson ran a lot of routes in high school because he was in an air raid style.
Yeah.
Julian didn't. And I think that is helping Jackson right now. Julian could definitely be better as a wide receiver in the long term than Jackson. But Jackson, as it is right now, looks like the best one because he just ran so many routes.
Yeah, he played in a much more pro-style offense, and Julian Fleming and the group at Southern Columbia played in more of like a wishbone wing tee.
And that makes a difference when you get here.
And he still ended up having a career of over 5,000 yards receiving.
Yeah,
I mean, he was great, but I just think it's going to be really cool to watch those guys as they develop together. And you mentioned it on Letterman Live, like the way that they work together and the way that group seems to be supporting each other.
It's the most selfless group.
Right. It's incredible for a position group that's known sort of as divas. There's not a one of them in that group. So we could talk about the early enrollees. We're going to talk about them for the next 6 weeks of spring football. So get off of that. And there was one other visitor today at Ohio State on Monday who is a non-committed player, and that's this guy named David Holloman from Michigan. He is from the Ann Arbor. What's that area?
Ann Arbor, Detroit.
No,
Lansing.
What's the spot where the Pistons used to play?
Auburn Hills.
Auburn Hills, yes. Avondale High School in Auburn Hills. That's where he's from.
Okay.
He's an interesting guy. He's actually visited Ohio State 3 times. Last time he was here was the Penn State game back in November. Then he saw Ohio State play against Michigan in Ann Arbor the week after.
All right.
He's a 3-star running back, and Ohio State actually, I think, really likes the kid. He's like 5'11", 200 pounds, kind of looks the part, and he was being kind of, hanging out all day with Mark Pantoni.
Courted by Mark Pantoni.
They haven't offered him, and I don't say they're gonna, but he's got 18 offers across the country, including like Maryland, Nebraska, pretty decent football programs. Just keep an eye on that name as we move along, because eventually the Buckeyes are going to take 2 running backs in the class of 2021. And the question is, how easy is it to get 2 top-tier guys when it comes to national rankings, or does it make more sense if you can get one of those big-time guys early to go after somebody who's a 3-star that maybe you have a more realistic shot of getting him to complement?
The good thing for Ohio State with this newly found prospect visiting is you're going to have an answer as far as one of these dominoes in the next 29 days.
Yeah. It should, yeah.
March have 31 days?
31.
Okay, yeah, 31. 30, 31.
Well, yeah, Evan Pryor says he's committing
If
before
Evan
April.
Pryor commits before April, one of the major dominoes in this entire class, regardless of position, falls, and that creates a trickle-down effect. You could see, some movement. Guys want to come to Ohio State. Maybe a guy drops Ohio State from his list because Evan Pryor's already there. Auburn Hills could play a big role in...
Well, Michigan is going to play a big role in Ohio State's running back recruiting one way or the other. Donovan Edwards, who we've talked about, obviously ad nauseum on this show, he is visiting Ohio State this week, Thursday and Friday. It's a 2-day visit.
Is that an official capacity?
No, it's an unofficial visit. He's coming down with Ron Bellamy, his coach at West Bloomfield. It's a huge trip. I mean, this is an opportunity for Ohio State to really lay things out to him. And we don't know the exact date yet of Evan Pryor's visit to Ohio State. I think it's the middle of the month, middle of March. But, if Donovan Edwards, and we talked about the crystal balls last week, if he is wanting to be in the Ohio State recruiting class,
he needs to do it now.
There's probably a conversation that's going to be had that says, hey, Evan Pryor is visiting.
Now, the good news, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, please do.
The good news on that front is, I know it was all for show, but there's a picture of Donovan Edwards and Evan Pryor.
They've talked about it.
In Georgia uniforms, saying that, let's play together kind of thing. So if one or the other commits, it could be potentially huge for Ohio State.
Sure.
Well, it's going to be huge one way or the other. But if they lay it out for Donovan Edwards and say, okay, we think Evan Pryor's in, we want you guys to play together, but we don't want you guys to play together in Georgia.
Donovan Edwards
has gone something.
Yeah, Donovan Edwards has gone on record saying that he wants to be a part of a 2-back system, which is rare because so many kids these days want all the carries. But he's understanding that longevity for a running back is not exactly great. And if he can split carries in college and not have to carry it 400 times a year and can carry it 130, 140, all of a sudden his NFL career potentially is much better.
It's interesting that you bring that up because there are two programs in the country that come to mind when you think of 2-back systems. Well, for me at least. Georgia, because they've just been able to do it for so long. Sure. And Ohio State, because they did it with Mike Weber and J.K. Dobbins.
They also did it with Carlos Hyde and Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that has been done here.
But most notably, Weber and Dobbins both went for over 1,000 in the same year. That's something that they can, there's proof in the pudding almost at both Georgia and Ohio State. And now you've got Donovan Edwards and Evan Pryor both saying, okay, Georgia and Ohio State are right here in the mix. Right. It's really interesting.
The Buckeyes and Bulldogs will be in the top 3 for each of those two. If you had to put it on the table right now, they'd both be in the top 3.
Pryor's with North Carolina as his third, and Edwards has Michigan as his third.
So it's an interesting dynamic that's coming in the next few weeks, but that starts this week for Ohio State and Donovan Edwards.
Huge visit.
When he makes his trip here on Thursday. There's definitely no reason to be thinking like there's a commitment watch happening or anything like that. But if the Buckeyes are truly in the lead in this recruitment and that's sort of the temperature as the way things are right now, it is an opportunity for them to change the game here and to put some distance between themselves, Michigan, Notre Dame, Georgia, LSU, all these other schools that he's still going to visit. He's expecting, I guess, to have a decision made by the start of summer. Anything can happen when you're on campus. That's really the beauty of this time of year. Visits just kind of happen. We don't always know about them, but kids are making their way around the country, visiting a lot of the top schools right now. So this is an abbreviated edition of Talking Stuff, but we're going to get out of here from Roosters, brought to you by our good friends at Buyers Auto. This has been Talking Stuff.
What did Austin say? If you're buying an auto, go to Buyers Auto.
Yeah, but that's just rhyming with rhyming.
But that's what buyers that's buyers' thing.
Is it?
Yeah, you'll have to take that up with the buyers.
I just think that you shouldn't rhyme auto with auto. Either way, you should go to Buyers Auto.
Yeah.
If you're
if you're buying an auto, go to Buyers Auto.
That's Spencer Holbrook. I'm Jeremy Birmingham. This has been Talking Stuff on LettermenRow.com. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will talk to you folks again next time.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe below to get the latest videos from Lettermen Row.
We got Letterman Live, we've got the practice report, we got rapid reaction. Hey, and we got Buckeye IQ with Zach Bourne.
For sure. We got recruiting breakdowns with Berm. We got whatever you need. Ohio State football and Ohio State athletics, we've got you covered here at Lettermen Row.